During an episode of Stamford Bridge, me and Sargon were watching a video talking about a bread tuber, Innuendo Studios. He had chosen to simply not pay his taxes, or was so unimaginably thick as to assume that YouTube's earnings were somehow exempt from taxation. I wish. Finding himself thus up shit creek without a paddle, facing a future as bottom-rung bitch at the local tax dodgers correctional facility, he decided to ask his supporters to pony up the $100,000 necessary to pay God only knows how many years of back taxes. And, proving yet again that a fool and his money are indeed easily parted, they did. Having raised a lot of money, Innuendo Studio then announced that he was taking a sabbatical, due to the enormous strain placed upon him for being a tax dodger, and would decide if he could still be a YouTuber sometime in October. At the time of the recording of this video, October was 6 months ago. And the money has apparently finally ran out, as he has made one new video since. But grown man is unaware of the concept of taxation is not the point of this video, as amusing as that is, as all of this made me think, how by Tina Turner's titty is this even possible? To not only go, hi there, I am a supposedly educated adult man who is presenting himself as an authority figure, but who was also unaware of the concept of taxation. Whoopsie poopsie. I am going to need $100,000, please. The sheer shame alone should have made any self-respecting person choose the Japanese way out. But not only did he not take that route, he got the money. An act of incredible altruism from his community, and then simply waddled off. For a year. It beggars belief. And it made me think, coming in conjuncture with the ice shooting of Rinny Good and the left wing's fascinating interpretation of that event, that I clearly did not understand at all how the left wing thinks. Not so much in what they believe to be morality, or what they believe, mind you, as I have spent some time studying that by now, but on a more fundamental perception of reality level.
This guy was sitting mere feet away from Konstantin Kisin during his debate with Destiny. When you hear what he has to say, it is scary to think how this could have gone.
I was fucking locked onto his eyes, and he kept glancing down at me and then breaking eye contact. Because I fucking hate the guy. I was just wanted to kill him.
I stumbled upon this stream when I was just trying to research and understand the opposing view, and I was shocked by some of the things this guy was saying. Keep in mind, this guy was sitting in Konstantin's eye line.
I think he got distracted by that and didn't pay attention to a single thing that he said.
Yes, it is just talk, but there is something more disturbing beneath the surface here. He's openly talking about wanting to assassinate Konstantin. This could have gone very differently. He even has a box cutter or X-Acto knife.
Which I should have done. Stanley Blades just fucking sprinted up onto the stage, slash Konstantin in the fucking jugular.
But he wants to kill him. You can see the chat that they're all thinking the same thing, it seems. No one seems to be bothered by this because it has become so commonplace.
So, since this bread tuber was apparently very popular and well thought of in left-wing circles, I figured, let's watch the famous Alt Right Playbook to see the left-wing point of view and how their predictions from 8 years back match up with the reality of today. And it was an illuminating experience, one I'm now going to share with all of you. Don't worry, I'm going to speed up the clips by 1.5 just to minimize your suffering, but there is going to be a fair bit of clippage here as well. As we begin with the core assumption made throughout this video series. We are the good, moral people. We are the normal people. We are the majority, and we must, at all cost, avoid talking to the right wing. And all of this comes across as authentically held beliefs. It's all very optimistic, the entire series. The left clearly believed that it had won. Indeed, that there wasn't even really a competition at all. The right wing was simply a tiny collection of absolute idiots. That whilst it would be fun to demolish their position in honourable debate, there really was no need to. The entire video series is in essence this very fantasy. Innuendo Studios even points this out in a video, referencing the West Wing television series, and how owning the bigots was an incredibly gratifying thing.
This with love, the liberal fantasy of putting someone in their place. Anytime a free speech warrior gets the Bill of Rights quoted to them when racists get historical accuracy explained by an actual historian, liberals take screen caps. We put it on Storify. We pass that shit around like it's theater popcorn. We live for the day an ignorant prick gets dunked on. I remind you, this was the central conceit of an entire TV show.
I don't say.
And most of the videos are exactly this. It presents a hypothetical scenario, then proceeds to deconstruct it. And I do mean hypothetical, as he rarely, if ever, actually shows anyone making the right-wing argument. He builds up his man of straw, then proceeds to bravely slay it with facts and logics. I completely understand now why these videos were so popular. It is pure left-wing masturbation, literally arguing with yourself in the shower type stuff. I kind of wish I had thought of this, honestly. Just make up the enemy's argument and then defeat them. Would have saved me a lot of reading. But anywho, this early optimism declaring that conservatism is simply very unpopular and that the left is the only ones with hope.
Voter reenfranchisement, prisoners' rights, protections for immigrants, statehood for DC, and redistricting, Gabe's opinions, in the societal sense, wouldn't matter. Reactionary conservatism is a small and largely unpopular ideology that is only so represented in our culture and politics because they've learned how to game the system. And disrupt the recruitment process or prevent infiltration of spaces you're in. I'm looking into it, but talk to your mods. But elephant in the room, meaningful change will require reform on the part of platform holders. Tools to disrupt this process already exist and are being used on groups like ISIS, but they're not being used on the alt-right because they try oh so hard not to get classified as terrorists. And also any functioning anti-radicalization policy would require banning a lot of conservative politicians. So there's that. But what makes our story better than theirs is that the fight for social and economic justice, though it is long and difficult and frustrating, when it works, it fulfills the promise the right can't keep. It materially makes people's lives better. I am not prone to sentimentality or to giving these videos happy endings, but one thing we have that the alt-right doesn't is hope.
Is sharply contrasted with the last video uploaded.
And I don't want it to be true yet. Say, for the sake of argument, you are, at this moment, standing ankle deep in the water, desperately wondering how many paces you are from the south bank of the Rubicon.
Where the creator, with all the subtlety of an orc rogue with a wooden peg leg, admits that the left has not won. That in fact everything is worse than ever, and that everyone must pick for themselves a moment of no return, a Rubicon. This is quite obviously so a call to action, and specifically action from which there is no return. Less of a dog whistle and more of a vuvuzela there, but oh well. This is becoming a common sentiment on the left, it appears. As in 2024, we had one failed assassination attempt on Trump, the recipient of the left wing's wrath for a decade straight. And just last year, of course, we had the successful assassination of right-wing personality Charlie Kirk. Apparently, waging war on men of straw is no longer going to cut it. Hardly a surprise, as pretty much all of the early predictions of the left had been proven to be untrue. They are not the normal people. They are not the majority, and they are not winning. But to make this larger realization make sense, and to help explain how the left got here, let's break it down a bit. Starting with how Innuendo Studios, and presumably the wider left, views the right wing. Well, they think we're evil. Full stop. And they have always thought we are evil. This is not a realization they arrived at or evolved. They actually just quite simply think that the right wing has no concept of morality. Not that we disagree on morality, but that we have none. We merely pretend to have one to win arguments.
See, I don't take you at your word because I cannot form a coherent worldview out of the things you say. So forgive me if when you tell me what you believe, I don't think you're being candid with me. It kinda seems like you're playing games, and I'm the opposing team, and anyone who's against me is your ally. And you're not really taking a position, but claiming to believe in whatever would need to be true in order to score points against me, like we're in that one episode of Seinfeld. Say, for the sake of argument, you're online blogging about a black journalist's commentary on marketing trends in video games, movies, and comic books. And you're saying how the vitriol in response to her fairly benign opinions reveals the deep-seated racism and misogyny in a number of fan communities, most especially those that lean right. When a right-leaning commenter pops in to say, or maybe they just actually disagree with her about marketing trends. For Christ's sake, there's no mystery here. People aren't speaking in coded language. They are telling you what they believe. She had a bad opinion. Why do you have to make it bigger than that? Why can't you ever take people at their word?
The point here is, I can't form your opinion as into a coherent worldview, and so I simply don't believe you believe these things. If I can't make a left-wing worldview out of it, it doesn't exist. Now, I can't believe a grown man was unaware of the concept of taxation, and so I believe you must be lying to me about why you need 100 grand. And I believe there might be far more reasonable explanations for it. Wow. This is quite the appealing way of viewing the world, I must say. If I can't make something make sense within my point of view, then you are simply lying to me. And we have a nice quote about boxes there as well to further illustrate the hypocrisy of it.
The running theme here is all these people who ostensibly want a frank exchange of ideas spend a lot more time making accusations than asking questions. Because why ask what you believe when they can tell you what you believe and make you correct them? And if you ever don't go to the trouble of correcting them, must be because they're right. And you're not naive, you see what's going on here. This isn't about conversation. No, this is about boxes. When you say something cogent that they don't agree with, and they get the sinking feeling that you might start making sense, they need a reason not to listen to you. So they reach for a box to stick you in.
Come on, you say. This can't be real, right? I mean, there have been plenty of arguments made by the right towards the left. How can all of that just be waved away as a no count? With a claim they literally don't understand the argumentation. That's absurd. Let me show you another clip.
So, let's get analytical. There's a certain beat you at your own gaminess to the card says moops maneuver. Safe spaces are bullshit, but if you get one, I get one too. There's no such thing as systemic oppression, but if there were, I'd be abreast. It's dismissing the rhetoric of social justice while also trying to use it against you. Claiming
that is how. If you have a safe space, I want one too. This is an example point that our left-winger simply cannot make sense of. It cannot be formed into a cohesive worldview. What do you mean this is not an exclusive opinion that only the left has access to? What do you mean that my version of systemic oppression does not exclude your version? This is the right wing trying to communicate with the left. It says, okay, so you want a safe space, all right? But if those are the rules, I want my men's-only clubs just like you have women's-only clubs. This is perfectly consistent thinking, but only from an equal perspective, where we believe ourselves to have equal worth and thus should have equal rules. You have a rule, I am willing to entertain it, but I want the protections you are proposing to extend to me as well. This seems perfectly obvious to us, but if you view it from the left, well, the oppressed need a safe space from their oppressors, the right. And since the oppressed are the oppressed group, they cannot possibly aggress upon the privileged group, as they are the victims. So even if they have rights that the oppressors do not have, that's fine. Because the minority can, by the definition of power plus privilege, do no wrong against their oppressors. This then, of course, feeds into the second point. Hold on, I don't think we do have systemic oppression. There are no systems explicitly designed to oppress you. However, if you are indeed arguing to create safe spaces exclusively for certain groups of people, excluding me in the process, then that is blindingly obviously your system oppressing me as a system. This is not the right appropriating the left's talking points. It is us using your example to show you how it would violate your own stated principles. Don't oppress anyone, you say. All right, I'm on board. But your solution will oppress me. Is that not against your principles? However, of course, it is not. Because the left has designated a group of people as lesser, as definitionally immoral. The precise term that they use for this group changes with time. Alt Right, fascist, white nationalist, etc. But the core focus is always on white people. And if that sounds a little too blatantly racist, I mean, they can't just group all white people together in opposition. I mean, the dude making this is white. Let me play you another clip.
My focus will be, what does whiteness mean to white people? American racial discourse has 4 principal white characters. On the far right end, you've got the guy white people picture when they hear the word racist. Your Klansman, your neo-Nazi, your suit and tie ethno-nationalist. This guy knows he's a racist, and he's proud of it. Next to the white supremacist, you've got the white collaborator, the politician, public figure, or businessman who does not agree with the white supremacist on paper, but will seek out their votes, attention, or money. Next to the collaborator, you've got the white moderate, people who ostensibly believe in racial justice as an end goal and are somewhat committed to bringing it about, but only with the cooperation of the white collaborator. It wouldn't be fair to do it without their consent, you see, and thus the white moderate spends a lot less time opposing collaborators than appealing to their better natures. They tend to operate on behalf of people of color rather than with them. Plainly put, the cost of doing business maneuver is this group using this group to attack this group using people of color as their weapon of choice. It is white supremacy in the form of 3 groups of white people fighting amongst themselves. Finally, on the far opposite end, you have the honest-to-goodness anti-racist, where the racist will support white supremacy, the collaborator uphold white supremacy, and the moderate seek to reform white supremacy. Only the anti-racist is trying to get rid of it. And even they are not free from racial bias. And if you tell one of them, you are not free from racial bias, it's not guaranteed they will react well. It's just, if you're trying to fight white supremacy, they're the white folks you have the best odds with.
Yeah, so racism, white supremacy, etc. is all white people, even the anti-racists. And before you suggest that beautiful and well-meaning old experiment of the Western world, how about we just be colorblind? How about we just not bother with racism at all?
This debate lasts approximately the rest of your goddamn life, which should be evidence enough that the frame is wanting. In today's framing, there are several shades of racism, and there is anti-racism. There is no non.
Yeah, 2.0. There is no such thing as not being racist. You are simply just racist. You're racist no matter your position on racism. This is not an identity you need to choose or even need embody. It is assigned to you. Like all slurs for the unclean caste that is both necessary and desirable to oppress. Now, this part of the left wing's position is already abundantly clear. They actually are genuinely and unironically racist. But of course, all good racist movements do need a way to condemn the race traitors amongst their own ranks as well. For one of the oppressed try and get in with their oppressors. That is where the broader term right wing comes in. Or, as often used in these videos, alt right. In essence, a shorthand term for far right, as it is a little bit more old and outdated and kind of funny. Firstly, what is the left wing's perception of right wing? Well, pretty much everyone not explicitly on the left. And whilst there are varying degrees of right wing, they are all intersected with the alt right, which in this context basically just equates to far right. So, what is the right specifically?
There are 3 things you'd have to clarify from the get-go. First, what is the alt-right? For For clarity's sake, you'd have to tell people that the alt-right is a pack of loosely aligned groups and individuals that have existed for quite a while at the peripheries of American conservatism, but have recently gained footholds in the Republican Party proper. The term alt-right implies more or less what you think it would, positioning themselves as the young, edgy nirvana to the antiquated motley crew of 70s and 80s conservatism. They seek to replace and critique the likes of Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan for being, let's not mince words here, not reactionary enough. The alt-right, the people who adopt the label and those who just parrot their talking points, has high overlap with white supremacist think tank the National Policy Institute, Stormfront and the Ku Klux Klan, Breitbart News and various sections of 4chan, 8chan, and Reddit, sections of the asshole atheist community, anti-feminist YouTube, pickup artists and rape apologists, the not all men, all lives matter and Gamergate crowds, and basically anyone who uses the terms social justice warrior or virtue signaling unironically. Not everyone in these groups is in the alt-right, but the alt-right traffics at the intersection between them. There's a wide range of differing and frankly incompatible ideas about government and the social order among these groups, but as it gains power, the alt-right is congealing into a somewhat cohesive ideology. And the reason they matter at this moment in history is that of all the people in the 2016 primaries, only one was the alt-right candidate. And while not everyone who voted for him is in the alt-right, they are his base, his most ardent supporters, and they carried him all the way to the White House.
Shocker. The far right is everything not left. To varying degrees, sure, but it is all tainted, because it all intersects with the alt-right. We might say that this is guilt by association, and a ridiculously small association at that. But the left will view this in the intersectional way, where if something is a part of you, no matter how small or otherwise insignificant or even undesirable, that is a part of your overall identity. And when this idea is applied maliciously, as it always will be due to the doctrine of repressive tolerance, maximum charitability one way, none at all the other, it means that if I say, for example, mass immigration has done demonstrable damage to our economy, culture, and society, with 2 terrorist attacks merely weeks before the recording of this.
You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
That's me in the video getting a bomb thrown over my head.
And a far right winger can then be found to agree to that. The point that now, by the way, is the majority opinion. Then it must clearly be a far-right opinion. But this is all hardly newsworthy. The left has been calling anyone right of centre, or hell centre, Nazis for a solid 10 years now. Far more interesting again is the tidbits that explain how the left went from optimism.
But what makes our story better than theirs is that the fight for social and economic justice, though it is long and difficult and frustrating, when it works, it fulfills the promise the right can't keep. It materially makes people's lives better. I am not prone to sentimentality or to giving these videos happy endings, but one thing we have that the alt-right doesn't is hope.
To despair.
And I don't want it to be true yet. Say, for the sake of argument, you are, at this moment, standing ankle deep in the water, desperately wondering how many paces you are from the south bank of the Rubicon.
There are several interesting realizations one can gather from this series. We can now, with the benefit of hindsight, see the left paving the road towards its own destruction. One of the first and most immediately obvious errors was the refusal to engage with the opposition, the refusal to even view them as creatures with agency at all, but instead simply as an already irrelevant force to be crushed with contemptuous ease. A straw man to be cut down and then dismissed. One of the most fascinating statements on this is the following clip.
The plasticity of culture cuts both ways. Just as surely as we can lose all the ground we've gained over the last half-century, everything the alt-right does to make itself palatable can be undone. In fact, it's maybe beginning to happen. It's going to be a long road that will probably require changes to how media platforms generate traffic and a lot of new politicians, but I want you to keep a phrase close to your heart. This is not normal. That phrase has become something of a mantra since the election in 2016, and it can be misused. White supremacy, sexism, and every other kind of bigotry are part of the fabric of American life and always have been. So even if this is more extreme than the usual, it's not by nearly as much as most privileged people like to think. So I want you to treat this less like an observation and more like a statement of intent. Whatever shit the alt-right pulls, I want you to say, this is not normal. This is not normal. This is not normal. We will not let this be normal.
Bearing in mind, yet again, the left's definition of alt-right, as we just saw, this then is declaring that anything the right does is not normal, and should not be viewed as an observation, but a mantra, something that exists irrespective of context. No matter what it is, if it is right, it is not normal. The right says, could you not dress up in fetish gear around children? No, it's not normal for you to request that. Could you, as a man, not use women's restrooms? No, it is not normal for you to request that. Could you not walk around in your goddamn bondage gear in public? No, it is not normal for you to request that. This had a huge hand in alienating the left from, well, everyone, as placing itself in opposition to anything the right did, no matter how reasonable, unavoidably meant that the left's demands grew more and more ridiculous and unreasonable, due again to this need to reject any objections from the right. Worse still, if you objected, that made you the villain, the bigot, the homophobe, etc.
Grand scheme of things, it's not so bad. I call this didoing. Relationship discourse would call it the tolerable level of permanent unhappiness, which is a really powerful phrase, but I came up with didoing, and I'm keeping it. You see didoing everywhere. Be as gay as you want, just don't tell your commanding officer. Be trans if you must, but pee at home. Kink is fine, but keep it out of pride. Drag is whatever, just not in front of children. Being a woman on the internet isn't hard if you're willing to block 70,000 people and just use this service to scrub all your private information from the internet so men have a harder time finding your home address. It's $11 a month. What, you can't afford $11 a month? And yes, these are all minimizations. And if you want, you can point that out. You can tell them what it's like to get a Twitter DM threatening to murder your entire family using a quote from Mission Impossible 3. Yeah, he's probably not going to do it, but it can still fuck up your day.
These are all reasonable objections. Bearing in mind, too, we were already making concessions towards the left. Our position was already, this is all okay, just keep it in your bedrooms, please. But because this position too had to be opposed with this is not normal, it was pushed and pushed and pushed. See, my view on this is very simple. When I am in public, I do my best not to inconvenience anyone else. Simple. It's all just about not imposing on the other human beings that you are sharing the space with at that time. And that also means we have to compromise.
The goal is to fuck up your day. But the It's Not Life and Death crowd won't understand. Not because they don't care, but because they don't care enough. But even that is letting them control the conversation. You're trying to stress the pain of a panic attack, the anxiety of a death threat, to emphasize a gulf of iniquity between their experience as a person who does not deal with these things and that of someone who does. As if were the gulf only smaller, it would be not so bad. In this, you have accepted their premise. Did you even catch what the premise was? That it's okay for things to be unfair within a certain tolerance. That some people do and should take extra precaution just to exist in the world alongside the rest of us. That it's okay for others to suffer for the convenience of the normals. Because it's not so bad. This is a bit different from how privilege usually works.
Now, this is awfully rich coming from a progressive, as the entire gist of this video entry is to say we should take special precautions for the comfort of some left-wing people. Understand, this is you making an imposition upon everyone else. And again, this is often allowed because of the desire to not be a bother. The pronoun debate is a fine example of this. If I meet someone for the first time and they ask, hey, can you use my she/her pronouns or any other variation? Odds are I will, because I am trying to be amicable in, again, a public shared space. And you are making a relatively minor imposition on me. You are didoing. And it is
not so bad.
However, if you demand I use the pronouns, now it is that bad, as there are indeed degrees here. Requesting, politely asking for something is very different from demanding it. And the left very rarely makes requests. It makes demands, backed up by implicit or explicit threats of social repercussions. All of this, one would think, could easily have been communicated with a simple discussion, but that's where the second round of bricks on the road to hell come in. As probably the single most oft-repeated argument in the video series is, do not talk with the right wing.
The biggest indicator that you can't win a debate with a reactionary is the fact that they keep telling you you can. The biggest indicator protest and deplatforming works is they keep telling you it plays into their hands. The biggest indicator that you shouldn't compromise with Republicans is they keep telling you doing otherwise is stooping to their level.
Let me repeat that one real quick, just so you're sure it sinks in. The biggest indicator that you cannot win a debate with a reactionary is that they tell you you can. So if you come to the left with an open mind and say, convince me, then by so doing, they will assume you are doing it in bad faith. With this as the standard, there is literally no talking to the left. Actually, honest to God, no opportunity whatsoever, as they have already decided that dialogue is not only pointless, but in fact a right-wing ploy. This was probably the revelation that shocked me the most, because it means that there never were, and never will be, any room for debate here. Reactionary here, by the way, simply means someone opposed to, reacting to, that is, progressivism. So again, anyone not left. And there are so many mentions of this, it is crazy.
And reinforcing that myth for theirs. And that myth gets spread even when you feel like you're winning. And I can't tell you the best way to deal with this, but I do know one way, which is to keep control of your own story. When someone comes out the gate with accusations, it's a big red flag that they are not arguing in good faith, which means you are not required to argue with them. When someone says something untrue, you can just tell your audience what the truth is without acknowledging the lie or the one repeating it. A detailed explanation does land a lot better when it's not being contrasted with a soundbite. Decide for yourself how your audience gets acquainted with a popular fiction, and never be too proud to delete a comment. In this political climate, these debates have real impact on real people's lives. They are not, in fact, a game of football. So if someone tries to force you to play defense, you don't have to play.
Come to the conversation with a story to tell, then tell it, and never even acknowledge either the original argument or any detractors, because you have the truth, the story.
Now funny, right? How many of these folks self-identify as rationalists? I mean, typical rational thinking would say, if I am presented with the truth, I will believe it. And once I believe it, I will defend it in argument. This is not that. This is a different idea of rationality that views it not as a practice, but as an innate quality one either possesses or lacks, like being blonde or left-handed. If I'm arguing it, I must believe it because I'm a rational person. And if I believe it because I'm a rational person, it must be true. You speak assuming you're right. And should you take a new position, this telescopes out into a whole new set of beliefs with barely a thought. Stay focused on the argument, you won't even notice it's happening. You might now conclude that the internet reactionary believes in nothing except winning arguments with liberals. And like Newtonian physics, if you assume this framing, you will get highly useful results. If you enter conversation with Engelbert and Charlemagne believing they do not mean what they say, they are only entertaining notions, and on a long enough timeline they will eventually defend a position fundamentally incompatible with the one they defended earlier in the same argument, you will navigate that conversation much more effectively. But, like Newtonian physics, this framing is lowercase a accurate, without being capital T true. In reality, nihilism isn't that popular.
The absolute truth has already been discovered. There is no possibility of any other truth than the truth. And since you have it, and the opposition does not, they are either at best ignorant, or more likely, lying. This calls back to the earlier clip about how the creator cannot form a coherent worldview out of his opposition's views, for they are not the truth. And so, since parley is impossible, what even is the solution?
What would be the effective ways to combat the alt-right? Kick them off social media, shut down their websites, cut off their funding, police their organizations as hate groups, and, if all else fails, be willing to deck someone at a counter-protest if it will prevent greater violence. So, what do they do to us? Falsely report our tweets as hate speech, DDoS our websites, try to shut down our Patreons, report us to the police as terrorists, and beat and murder people in the streets. Now, these are all things they enjoy doing regardless, but they serve a strategic purpose. If we consider doing to them any of what they've done to us, we get the performative self-flagellation. You wouldn't want to stoop to our level now, would you? And when they tell us it would be wrong to kick them off Twitter or stop them from organizing even though they keep killing people, what argument do they give us? They invoke the First Amendment.
Well, that was about as unexpected as the clown slipping on the banana peel. If words are not an option, then the opposition must be kept from speaking, prevented from creating places of their own, denied financial opportunities, and targeted by the police if they somehow still persist. Wow, I mean, we all knew this was what the left wanted to do. There was ample evidence of that, but seeing it laid out like this, makes you realize that if they got their way, we would have less rights than slaves. Crowned, of course, by the final point, violence, too, is not only permissible, but desirable. Should the Untermensch ever get uppity and try to get that point across in the language of the oppressed. Writing. Luckily, the left's decision to isolate itself from all discourse made it blind to what was happening in the real world.
Third, you'd have to cover how to engage with the alt-right, which is actually pretty straightforward. Don't. The reasoning there may not be immediately obvious, especially if you, say, once devoted an entire video to the importance of talking to anti-feminist hate mobs. So you'll have to explain. You have since then learned how such debates with the far right often go, thanks to conversations with people who have more lived experience than you. If some guy on Twitter shoots his mouth off about how, for instance, only precious snowflakes would care about how many black women are getting roles in Hollywood, maybe you push back on that. Maybe the conversation gets heated. Maybe you debunk his arguments, make your points, and he walks away in a huff. For you, the interaction is over. But for folks on the far right, it often isn't. The far right keeps mental lists of people who represent the things they're mad about.
And boy, is this a great clip to demonstrate that. How to talk to the right. Don't. Followed by, oh, those silly racists. They are trying to convince the normies that diversity for diversity's sake is going to ruin entertainment. What silly buggers. And today, what is the majority opinion on this? It is that forced diversity does indeed ruin entertainment. Go woke, go broke is a boomer saying now. It's something the normies repeat. Now, something else interesting is how they arrived at the go woke, go broke position as well. As, here's the thing. There is nothing inherent within the left wing that guarantees bad entertainment. You can make a story all about racial equality and racism and still have it be good. Glory is a wonderful example of this, where the entire thrust of the movie is, we are all human beings. Today, of course, Glory would be considered unbearably reactionary, as colorblindness does not exist and racism is eternal, yada 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 yada. Still though, how did it get this bad? To the point where, like clockwork, a diverse movie or game will be a near guaranteed flop. And a truly atomic flop too, a la Concord or 1348 ex voto. It has a lot to do, of course, with the fact that the left never liked these things to begin with, and thus would not support them. Or as Innuendo puts it,
fucking video games? Fucking video games. They made dozens of people miserable for years over video games. Not even fucking video games, fucking articles about fucking video games. This is what passes for legitimate grievance. Are you kidding me with this shit?
fucking video games. How dare people put their video games above the politics of the people who hate video games? You really would think that the left, the champion of safe spaces, would have recognized the dangers of assaulting other people's safe spaces. But even though they did recognize it, as he himself points out here,
though, are framed as infiltrators pushing an agenda, even if they've been there longer than the Nazis have. They get the wedge too. This is how fandoms radicalize. They are built as, yeah, I'll say it, safe spaces for nerds, weebs, and furries, and are told that the left is a threat to their safety. Given a choice between leaving a community that has mattered to him for years and simply adjusting to the community's shifting politics, the assumption is that Gabe will stay. This assumption is right often enough that a lot of fandoms have been colonized. What is true of both these methods, Gabe finding the right or the right finding him, is that Gabe does not come nor stay for the ideology. He's here for the community, the sense of being with his people, of having his fears validated and his enjoyment shared. The ideology is simply the price of admission.
that protection of safe spaces apparently did not extend to us, as, yes, fandoms were safe spaces, safe explicitly from real-world issues. It used to be a massive taboo to bring up politics or religion in gaming circles, and geekdom in general. But then the left arrived and took issues with just about everything. Suddenly, gamers were being accused of things like racism, fascism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, every sort of ism you can think of. And I want to point out yet again that during these early days, these were not the silly, pointless accusations that they are today. Now, if someone is accused of these things, they laugh it off. It's irrelevant and not at all dangerous. Back then, if you wore the wrong shirt, your life was over. And for the people publicly resisting the politicization of hobbies, we were at a constant risk of censorship, or simply just outright deletion. In the 2016 Times, etc., being in opposition to the left on YouTube was like having the sword of Damocles hung constantly right above your head. The left wing had absolute dominance over culture, to the point where we did not even recognize it. Progressivism was simply the waters in which we swam, and the left wing's view of this? To explain why we started to resist ever more fervently, to reject them ever more fervently? Well, it was not because the things we loved were being destroyed by, again, the urging to go, this is not normal, no matter what it was. Oh no, not at all. You see, it was because we were infiltrated by the right wing.
And this is where the far right will go looking for him. Communities are at their most vulnerable to infiltration at times of political discord. This can happen naturally, say a new property in the fandom has a black protagonist, or it can be provoked, say a bunch of channers join the forum and say provocative things about race to get people arguing, or both. Left to its own devices, the community might sort out its differences and maybe even come out more progressive than they started. But with the right pressure applied in the right moment, these communities can devolve into arguments about the need to remove a nebulously defined politics from the conversation. The adage about bros on the internet is political means anything I disagree with. But it would be more accurate to say here, political means anything on which the community disagrees. For instance, Nazis are bad is an apolitical statement because everyone in the community agrees. It's common sense and therefore neutral. But paradoxically, Nazis are good is also apolitical. Because Nazis are bad is the consensus, Nazis are good must just be an edgy joke, and even if not, the community already believes the opposite, so the statement is harmless, tolerable. However, feminism is good is a political statement because the community hasn't reached a consensus. It is debatable and therefore political, and you should stop talking about it. And making political arguments, no matter how rational, is having an agenda, and having an agenda is ruining the community. Now, it is curious how the things that provoke the most disagreement tend to be whichever ones make white dudes uncomfortable, one of life's great unanswerable mysteries. You can gather where this is going. A community that doesn't tolerate progressivism, but does tolerate Nazism, is going to start collecting Nazis. Nazis whose goal is to drive a wedge between the community and the left. Once the left acknowledges, hey, your community's developing a Nazi problem, the Nazis, who are, remember, trusted apolitical members of the community who might just be kidding about all the Nazi shit, say, did you hear that, guys? Those cultural Marxists just called all of us Nazis. Wedge. Similarly, any community members who say, but Nazis, though, are framed as infiltrators pushing an agenda, even if they've been there longer than the Nazis have. They get the wedge, too.
As someone who was right there at the time, and who still know many people who were there then too, there was no right wing. Not even infiltrating, there was no right wing. To be right wing back then, it basically meant you wanted fewer taxes. Other than that, you were 100% subscribed to everything the left was saying. That's why the accusations were so effective back then, because being called a Nazi was the worst thing you could possibly call someone. It was so bad that it was indeed a point of irreverent humor. Our entire generation was based on irreverent humor and resistant against the establishment. We joked about the Nazis to demonstrate how ridiculous it was. It was the butt of a joke because it was impossible. It's like saying you eat babies, in essence. It was absurdity, literally as humor. But then the actual radicalization began because of the left.
Who isn't a cishet conservative white dude or one of their approved exceptions. To the extent that any of this happens, it happens at Gabe's discretion and at his own chosen pace. It has not been forced on him, only encouraged and rewarded. But the fact that it hasn't been forced can make him all the more willing to accept it, because it seems safe to consider. Even though his life and social circle are changing to accommodate, he does not feel committed. But many Gabes have walked these halls, and if they close the door behind them, there is nowhere left to go but down. Step 4. Raise their power level.
If you entertained any non-left idea, you were ostracized. Every accusation of an ism or phobia were doors shutting. Doors the left had no interest in ever reopening.
Third option, Gabe can leave. Pre-conclusion, for fuck's sake, do not make Gabe your whole ass praxis. Before we continue, I want to state plainly that Gabe went off the deep end because he found a community willing to tell him that because he is a cishet white man, the world revolves around him. Do not treat him like this is true. If a fraction of the energy spent having debates with America's Gabes were spent instead on voter reenfranchisement, prisoners' rights, protections for immigrants, statehood for DC, and redistricting, Gabe's opinions, in the societal sense, wouldn't matter.
As it was far too busy forcing through its reforms, guaranteeing political power forever, with mass immigration, enfranchisement of criminals, and redrawing political districts. They did not spend a second on reopening doors, because as we have already seen, there was no point in talking to the right. And the moment that first door slammed shut, you were the right. And the left had all the power it needed and could consolidate even more by obeying their own doctrine. Might makes right here. If they can redraw enough maps, bring in enough migrants, and enfranchise enough people who probably shouldn't have the franchise, then the left would have all the might it would require. And the left believed it had all the might in the world back then. And they did. But
how much Gabe isolates is up to him. But the vast majority of far-right media presumes an alienation from the left. Part of conservative bloggers and YouTubers making the left look pathetic is doing a lot of takedowns and responses. This is a constant repetition of the left's arguments for the purpose of mockery. And for Gabe, it starts to replace any engagement with progressive media directly. He soon knows the left only through caricature. It also trains him, if he does directly engage, to approach the left with the same combative stance as his role models. For reference, see my comment section.
The resistance began to form. Now, the assertion here that the far-right media relied upon people already alienated from the left is difficult to understand, as just previously it was claimed the right wing also infiltrated fandoms to alienate from the left. What right wing? Were the right wing media personalities not a part of it? The chicken is arguing with the egg here, and both are attributing a far greater degree of organization and sophistication to the right at the time than it had. In fact, as Innuendo Studio himself mentioned in a previous clip,
there are three things you'd have to clarify from the get-go. First, what is the alt-right? For clarity's sake, you'd have to tell people that the alt-right is a pack of loosely aligned groups and individuals that have existed for quite a while at the peripheries of American conservatism, but have recently gained footholds in the Republican Party proper. The term alt-right implies more or less what you think it would, positioning themselves as the young, edgy nirvana to the antiquated motley crew of 70s and 80s conservatism. They seek to replace and critique the likes of Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan for being, let's not mince words here, not reactionary enough. The alt-right, the people who adopt the label and those who just parrot their talking points, has high overlap with white supremacist think tank the National Policy Institute, Stormfront and the Ku Klux Klan, Breitbart News and various sections of 4chan, 8chan, and Reddit, sections of the asshole atheist community, anti-feminist YouTube, pickup artists and rape apologists, the not all men, all lives matter and Gamergate crowds, and basically anyone who uses the terms social justice warrior or virtue signaling unironically. Not everyone in these groups is in the alt-right, but the alt-right traffics at the intersection between them. There's a wide range of differing and frankly incompatible ideas about government and the social order among these groups, but as it gains power, the alt-right is congealing into a somewhat cohesive ideology. And the reason they matter at this moment in history is that of all the people in the 2016 primaries, only one was the alt-right candidate. And while not everyone who voted for him is in the alt-right, they are his base, his most ardent supporters, and they carried him all the way to the White House.
The right was very divided, and after Gamergate it largely broke apart because there were so many different ideas on the right, simply because it was, by necessity, a big tent, a huge tent. It had to be, as the left was actively alienating everyone, not them. And once the initial impetus of having a shared foe eventually petered out, the right began to splinter because it was so unorganized, and yet you assume this movement that collapsed instantly upon the loss of their common foe, and splintered into dozens of different people with dozens of different opinions, had enough organization to infiltrate every fandom on Earth. A far easier and more realistic explanation as to why games moved away from the left is found in a previous clip.
Fucking video games? Fucking video games. They made dozens of people miserable for years over video games. Not even fucking video games, fucking articles about fucking video games. This is what passes for legitimate grievance. Are you kidding me with this shit?
This is the creator's view on video games. It is a thing that does not matter, and the left has been firm on this since day one. Politics are more important than video games. We all disagreed. Simply put, the left aggressed first, declared our hobbies to be pointless and silly and that they needed to grow up, and the right-wing culture war YouTubers were a response to this, saying, actually, our hobbies aren't silly, they're pretty cool actually, and they're nowhere near as sexist, misogynist, yada 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 yada, as you keep claiming them to be. Hell, a lot of them were literally arguing on the left-wing's own points and premises, precisely because we were trying to figure out what the hell was happening, and why. So when the question is asked, why games?
Communities are at their most vulnerable to infiltration at times of political discord. This can happen naturally, say a new property in the fandom has a black protagonist, or it can be provoked, say a bunch of channers join the forum and say provocative things about race to get people arguing, or both. Left to its own devices, the community might sort out its differences and maybe even come out more progressive than they started. But with the right pressure applied in the right moment, these communities can devolve into arguments about the need to remove a nebulously defined politics from the conversation.
Quote, gaming was becoming diverse, and so the far right infiltrated to convert young men. Again, the utterly unorganized, completely divided group infiltrated all of these movements, all of these fandoms, all of these forums, the now proven majority that knew nothing about politics and viewed it as a taboo. Likely story. So, if we're asking the question, what radicalized you? Why games? Why were games the ones that rose up? Well, the answer is really gosh darn simple. You radicalized me! I was just truly, genuinely sitting here, playing my games and talking about Warhammer, when everything started turning to shit. Games, movies, television, etc. And finding out why, forced diversity, amongst other things, and the general politicization of every franchise, I thought this is going to hit Warhammer 2. I have to do something. And 10 years later, every prediction made have quite unfortunately fully manifested. And Warhammer is now fully set up and prepared to follow the precise same trajectory as Star Wars and other popular franchises. A surging boom of interest as it hits the mainstream, slopification follows in order to attract ever more non-fans, followed by a slow extinction as what made 40K is all stripped away, until what made Star Wars is all stripped away, replaced by a literal green baby. Because an actual, honest-to-God, fuzzy toddler is the sole singular popular character Disney has managed to create out of $1 billion franchise. And by God did we try to tell you. We tried to tell everyone. We still are. The reason why the right is resurgent right now and in the ascendancy is because we've been screaming, look, they are ruining the thing for 10 years. And everyone else slowly going, fuck. You're right, this is shit. But instead of dialogue, which again was fundamentally rejected before any conversation could even be had, we were all, and I do mean all, simply called fascists. And why? I'll let Innuendo tell you.
The response to this is usually, but we can't go calling our opponents fascists. What if they did that to us? To which I might first respond, what do you mean, what if? Everything they tell us not to do is part of their core strategy. But also, shouldn't the determination of whether it's wrong to call someone a fascist depend at least a little on whether they actually are one? But that question can't be posed within values-neutral governance. Values-neutral governance wants rules that are correct in every scenario regardless of context. If the left and the right stand across the aisle yelling, "You're the fascist," at each other, it can condemn both or neither. But it can't determine who's the fascist without taking context into account. But in case you're wondering, these guys are the fascists, and they don't vote for Democrats. Everyone can see what the alt-right is doing, but no one knows how to oppose it within the rule set, and they never will. An action has no intrinsic value wholly separate from its outcome. A Kentucky clerk breaking the law by refusing to sign a legal gay marriage license is wrong, and a California clerk breaking the law by signing an illegal gay marriage license is right. There is a moral imperative to disobey rules when following does not lead to justice. Some say rules are what separate us from the animals, but I've always preferred the adage that what separates us from the animals is that we have a conscience. This isn't to say we shouldn't act better than our opposition, but that maybe we shouldn't let the people going low define for us what counts as going high, and to consider that pursuing justice rather than manners may be taking the high road. To my understanding, being a grown-up sometimes means taking a kid's toys away until he can behave himself. It's clear from looking at Republicans that you can govern on your values and be successful. It's just a question of which values you govern on. The rules will not protect us from bad ideas. The only solution to a bad idea is a better idea.
Right. So, firstly, why were we called fascists? Because we, yet again, the hyper-organized right wing that we were, had a strategy to do the same to them. Utterly insane. The overwhelming majority of us did not even have a functioning definition of fascism back then, beyond bully, which, granted, the left fit quite well. It was years until we even understood that we were actually under attack. I mention this every time I belabor this point, but I remember watching a Sargon video early on where he talks about how if he could just sit down with Anita Sarkeesian, he could explain to her that we don't actually hate women, that video games aren't actually sexist, and it really is open to anyone who wants to play them. And furthermore, we now also get a far more honest definition of fascism in this clip too, as he explains that a judge breaking the rule in the left's favor is good, whereas a judge breaking the rules in the right's favor is bad. Because an action's value is dependent on its results, a result that is, of course, subjective. Or to put it nice and short, left-wing good, right-wing bad. This is then finished with, we should act better than the opposition, but redefine what acting better means. And it means winning. Which, incidentally, makes me very fond of this bit in the middle here. Because, of course, Richard Spencer, the old front figure of the Alt Right, the fascist himself, the one that has been used half a dozen times to exemplify the far right in Innuendo Studios' own series, is a Kamala Harris supporter. Because, well, see, something the left has seemingly never understood is that when your entire movement is based on, well, I say it's good, and since it is thus intrinsically good, any action taken in its defense or furtherance must be good. E.g., an action has no value beyond its results. Well, you're going to attract a lot of tyrannical people with that line of thinking. People who believe they have the truth as well, even if it's no longer your truth. And finally, now, sitting here in 2026, it is pretty plain to see it didn't work out for the left. And our subject matter realizes this too.
That joke you're giving free press to is saying some pretty scary stuff. And the right is like, look, don't waste your breath. We've already accepted that we lost this one. We're certainly not going to bat for this guy, so he's gonna lose. And then at the last second, when they do go to bat for him, and he does win, and the left is like, what the absolute heck, my dudes? They go, can't do anything about it now. He's the president. And when, 4 years later, you finally get his ass out of office, the left turns to the right and says, okay, now that he's not president, are you going to acknowledge all the stuff he did? You know, the stuff he said he was going to do, that we warned you he was going to do, and you said we were delusional for thinking he would do, that he did? And they're like, oh my god, Heather, he's not even president anymore? How are you still talking about this? I call this one the slow breakup. It's like when your partner starts canceling date nights and then starts getting home really late and then starts sleeping on the couch, and you keep asking, hey, is there something wrong? In the United States, we are increasingly comfortable saying that our democracy is under threat, that we are at risk of descending into authoritarianism. Few are ready to say that the threat has arrived. And I'm referring to myself when I say that. I'm not ready to say it's arrived. No one wants to call it prematurely. I want people to listen to me. I don't want to sound irrational. I don't want to sound like them. And I don't want it to be true yet. Say, for the sake of argument, you are, at this moment, standing ankle deep in the water, desperately wondering how many paces you are from the south bank of the Rubicon.
A slow decline. An inability to ever really get any traction, even though you should be winning. We are in a relationship. We are in the majority. Why isn't anything working out the way we want it? Eventually replaced by, oh. It's already too late, isn't it? Yes, it may very well be. Though, who knows for sure, politics is a volatile business. I very much so believe my side is winning right now, but Innuendo was utterly convinced he was winning too. In fact, he believed he was winning so hard, he had no problems at all arguing for his opposition to be deplatformed, defunded, regulated, and police prosecuted. It is a sobering thought, especially in the face of one last clip.
So where does that leave Gabe? He's gone through this whole process of largely hands-off indoctrination, and I should stress, his journey may look like what we've outlined here, or it may look different in places. This video is not comprehensive. But now he's swallowed every pill he cares to, he blames half a dozen minorities for everything he sees as wrong with the world, and no one will give him anything to do. You've got this ad hoc movement frothing young men into a militant fervor, and then just leaving them to stew in their own hate. Should we really be surprised at how many commit mass shootings? This is a machine for producing lone wolves. Leaving men to take up arms of their own volition is a way of enacting terror while being just outside the popular conception of a terror cell. There are also, of course, more classic militias that will offer Gabe clear directives. They are recruiting from the same pool. And Gabe may stop short of this, settling in a middle layer that suits him or finding the inner layers too extreme. But violence is the logical conclusion of an ideology of hate. And should Gabe take this step, he can approach violence in the same incremental fashion he approached conservatism. He can start with yelling at people on Twitter, and then maybe collective brigading, DDoS attacks, sharing docs, leaking nudes, calling their phone numbers, texting them pictures of their houses from the sidewalk. These acts of cruelty become games of one-upmanship within his community. All this can start as far back as step 2 and get more intense the deeper he goes. And some people join explicitly to partake in harassment and violence the way Gabe joined to talk about anime. But this behavior can serve as a kind of buy-in. The left and the feminists and the LGBTQs and the Muslims and the immigrants are all within his community subhuman. You've maybe heard the conservative catchphrase, feminism is cancer. Well, you don't treat cancer by having a respectful exchange of ideas with it, but by eradicating it down to the last cell. Cruelty against the left is framed as necessary and righteous. From any other perspective, posting someone's bank information is something you might feel ashamed.
Now, let me play you that clip again, but with a little bit of editing.
So where does that leave Gabe? He's gone through this whole process of largely hands-off indoctrination, and I should stress, his journey may look like what we've outlined here, or it may look different in places. This video is not comprehensive. But now he's swallowed every pill he cares to, he blames half a dozen minorities for everything he sees as wrong with the world, and no one will give him anything to do. You've got this ad hoc movement frothing young men into a militant fervor, and then just leaving them to stew in their own hate. Should we really be surprised at how many commit mass shootings? This is a machine for producing lone wolves. Leaving men to take up arms of their own volition is a way of enacting terror while being just outside the popular conception of a terror cell. There are also, of course, more classic militias that will offer Gabe clear directives. They are recruiting from the same pool. And Gabe may stop short of this, settling in a middle layer that suits him or finding the inner layers too extreme. But violence is the logical conclusion of an ideology of hate. And should Gabe take this step, he can approach violence in the same incremental fashion he approached conservatism. He can start with yelling at people on Twitter, and then maybe collective brigading, DDoS attacks, sharing docs, leaking nudes, calling their phone numbers, texting them pictures of their houses from the sidewalk. These acts of cruelty become games of one-upmanship within his community. All this can start as far back as step 2 and get more intense the deeper he goes. And some people join explicitly to partake in harassment and violence the way Gabe joined to talk about anime. But this behavior can serve as a kind of buy-in. The left and the feminists and the LGBTQs and the Muslims and the immigrants are all within his community subhuman. You've maybe heard the conservative catchphrase, feminism is cancer. Well, you don't treat cancer by having a respectful exchange of ideas with it, but by eradicating it down to the last cell. Cruelty against the left is framed as necessary and righteous.
This is not a right-wing thing. This is a radicalization thing. The left, too, and to a much greater degree as well, if recent history is to be believed, has created a generation of young men. Individuals who now genuinely do believe they are ankles deep in the Rubicon River. That literal fascists, the worst people ever, the monsters of the West's foundational myth, are coming for them. They are using terms such as transgender genocide to describe the situation right now. The phrase, our democracy is in danger, is only slightly less common than the phrase, Trump is a fascist. And as for the right referring to feminism as a cancer to be exterminated, the left wing's very fundamental belief is that the right is evil, that it has no morality. If you ever want any proof of this, and oh my god, this video alone has plenty, But you can go all the way back to Gamergate and the male tears mugs. Or just months ago with the glee with which the left met the Charlie Kirk assassination.
People that are like, no matter what side of politics you're on, you should never celebrate something bad happening to someone. I, on the other hand, do cheer when bad things happen to bad people.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
Well, breaking news, folks. Seems somebody just took a shot at one of the Fastest favorite 5-mile wide mouthpieces, Charles Chuckle Kirk.
Frankly, it has been so bad for so long that when the left threatens to escalate, when they look at us and go, I am near my point of no return, I really do have to ask, what could you possibly do that's worse? You've already tried to deplatform the right, to censor it, to demonize it, to dehumanize it. You've certainly done your fair share of violence too, so what is next? What exactly are you threatening me with now? As at the end of it all, what this dive into the left wing's most popular video series has taught me is that the left has always hated us. Genuine, actual hatred. Every bit as fierce as that they claim to see on the right. This conviction led them to cut off communication, to escalate, to the point where the baseline assumption was that the right has no morality and will never argue in good faith. Most important of all, I learned that this sort of zealotry will leave you blind to your own failings. If we have anything to learn from the left, it is to not assume our enemy is utterly irredeemable, to not reject all discourse, and most importantly, never take the favor of the majority for granted. There is a reason why politics is such a seesaw game. But considering the sheer levels of vitriol we see in our opposition, I would very much so like to not give the public any excuse to side with them ever again. And on that sobering thought, I've been out. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.